That was amazing. Who's excited to be here tonight? Someone must be excited to be here tonight. There we go. All right, so once again, I just want to welcome you guys to Altitude. I'm glad you guys could be here with us tonight. So, as we get started tonight, we are beginning a brand new series here at Altitude, and this series is called The Journey. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Easter is coming up soon and very soon. And so, what is happening for Easter is, let's just not get that. For Easter weekend, we have big plans. We're hooking up with the church here together. So it's going to be tons of people. Amazingness. Easter weekend, it's going to be Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday night, all weekend. So what that means is, up until that point, we're going to go on a journey, and we're going to look at the last week of Jesus' life, looking all the way up to his death and his crucifixion, Easter weekend. So that's just a plug right now. You'll get better and more information as we get closer to that weekend, but we would love to see you out there. So, like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to go on a journey looking at the last week of Jesus' life. So, I have a question for you guys. How many of you guys in this room have ever been to a party of any sort in their life at any time, one time or another? I'm sure you've all been to a party. I remember one party in particular in my life above other parties because this party had a lot of hype around it. The party happened when I was in the 12th grade. And what was happening, it was someone's sweet 16 birthday party. I was a little bit older than that person. And so there was this party, and word kind of got out about this party. And the closer the party came, the more hype this party got. Everyone was saying, like, it's going to be the party of the year. You have to be there, sweet 16. And the only problem was I wasn't invited to said party. But a few of my friends were invited to the party, and so we thought to ourselves, well, no big deal, I'll just roll up with my friends. But the closer we got to the party, the more hype, the more excitement that party was gaining. More word came out, more rumors about this party. And one rumor was that this party was going to have a guest list. And a guest list, and not just any guest list, it was going to be a physical copy of a guest list. And if your name was not on that list, there was going to be a bouncer at the door. It was a hall party. There's going to be a bouncer kicking people out. And so my friends, we kind of heard this rumor, and we thought to ourselves, there's no way there's going to be a bouncer at a party. This girl's 16 years old. Who has a bouncer? And so we weren't too worried about it. And as the days got closer, we're getting excited. Everyone is talking about this party because this was the place to be. And so as the days led up, it turns out it was actually a Saturday night, much like tonight, but like 6 years ago or something like that. And the night comes, and so we roll up there, and there's a group of us. And lo and behold, as we get to the party, we kind of roll up, and we see there's this lineup. And there's actually this big bouncer, and he's checking IDs. And so I brought my ID just in case. I'm not sure what I thought I was going to do with it because I wasn't on the list. And so we get in line, and there's a group of us. And like I said, some of us are invited, some of us are not quite invited. And so he's going through the list, and as he gets down the list, it's my turn. I go up, and he's like, what's your name? And I'm like, Harrison Chaka. And I don't know what I expected to happen in that moment. But he looks through the list, and I wasn't on the list. And he's like, get out of here. And so I put my head in shame. And I was like, oh man, like this is the greatest party. I'm going to miss it. My friends who are invited, no remorse. They walk right in. And I kind of walk over, and in the corner, there's another group of rejects. People who had tried to get into the party, but who are not so successful. So I kind of walk over to them, and I was like, hey guys, like you didn't get in either? They're like, no. And I was like, yeah, life is hard. And so what happens is we're sitting in that group with all the rejects, and someone gets a text message. And this guy gets a text message. He's like, hey. He's like, my friend just texted me who's in the party. There's a way to get in through the backside. All we got to do is just go around, and he's going to be there at the back to let us in. And so we're excited. We have new hope. We're about to get into this party. And so we're excited. And so what happened, I don't know logistics-wise, but we have to go all the way around the block far away, maybe to avoid the bouncer or whatever, so they won't see us. And so we get to this thing, and there's the building over here, and there's a huge field in between. And somehow we had ended up on this side of the field over here. So there's us, a field, and this hall. And the hall, what is there? It's the hall, and then behind it there's a concrete slab, and that concrete is surrounded by a fence. And so what was happening is some guy was there lifting up the fence, and he was letting all the rejects in. And so we're there at the back of the field, and we are pumped because we're like, we're getting into this party. This is going to be the best day of our lives. And so what we do, we just start running. We have the darkness of night to cover us and protect us. And we're just in a dead sprint. And so there's like maybe 4 or 5 of us just sprinting. And all that is in between us And glory is this backstop, this baseball backstop. And so as everyone is kind of getting close to it, they sort of just all peel to the side, like we're in unison sprinting, and everyone's kind of peeling to the side. And so as I'm running past, I'm top speed, like we're going fast. The adrenaline's pumping, like what if the security guards come? And we're running, everyone kind of avoids the backstop, and I'm running full speed, top speed, and all of a sudden I fall flat on my face. Flat on my face. Something has taken out my legs. And in my head, I'm like, is there a bouncer? Like, what's happening? And as I get up, I turn around, my friend is nearly crying. He's laughing so hard. I'm nearly crying for other reasons. To this day, I've never fallen so hard in my life. If you guys can imagine going a full sprint and your legs being taken out from under you. What had happened was, to the backstop, there was a garbage can attached to it with a long metal chain. And what had happened is I had tripped over this chain and fallen straight on my face. It was a painful experience. But nevertheless, we didn't have time to spare because there was a party going on. So we had to get to this party. And so we got back up, and they're just dying laughing. And we get to the gate. I'm like bleeding everywhere. I'm like, let's party. And I'm just blood everywhere. And long story short, the guy, he opens up the fence. We get in, and we are in to the party of the year. And the reason that I kind of wanted to start with this story explaining a party that I've been to is because as we look at the journey of Jesus in his last week before his death, we are going to look at a party that he was at this last week. And this party, much like the party I was going to, no doubt there was some hype around this party. And so what had happened at this time, I'll give you some background. We'll get to the party in a second that Jesus is at. So around this time, Jesus had started to get lots of fame. People were talking about Jesus. Hey, you guys hear about Jesus? He's doing miracles. He's healing people, all these crazy things. So Jesus got some hype around him. He's becoming like a semi-celebrity. And so what has happened is Jesus has raised this guy Lazarus from the dead. I don't know if you guys have heard this story. It's found in John chapter 11. It's an interesting story. I read it. And Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. And so this has kind of put Jesus' popularity over the top. People are like, I got to see this Jesus guy. And so what happened is there's these people called the Pharisees. And the Pharisees are these religious leaders, and they're not too happy about what's going on. Because they're thinking to themselves, if this guy Jesus gets any more popular, what's going to happen to us? There's going to be madness, chaos. And so we pick up our story. The story that we are looking at today is one of the rare stories that is found in all four Gospels, in the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to be taking it from every single Gospel, every single account to paint a full picture of what is happening that night. So Jesus says this to his disciples, Matthew 26. He says, when Jesus had finished saying these things, he said to his disciples, as you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified. The scene kind of shifts now. It says, the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas. And they schemed to arrest Jesus and secretly kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or there may be a riot among the people. So what happens here, Jesus is kind of foreshadowing his death. Like I said, we're on a journey right now, and we're leading all the way up to his death. And Jesus says to his disciples, he's like, hey guys, he says to the 12, to the homeboys, he's like, guys, I'm about to be turned over, I'm going to be crucified. And it's funny, a lot of times in scriptures, Jesus tells people, hey, I'm about to die, I'm going to get crucified. And they kind of just brush him off. They don't really make any acknowledgement of it. They're like, okay, Jesus, you just keep on saying your crazy things. And so they don't really even acknowledge it. And so the scene shifts to the Pharisees, and they're kind of scheming, and they're saying to themselves, this Jesus guy is getting too popular, he's getting too big. How can we get rid of this person? So this is the story, this is the backdrop for our story today. You guys ready to go on a journey? All right, let's do this. So next verse, Matthew 26 says this. Meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany. So the scene shifts to Bethany. He says to the disciples, I'm going to be crucified. And they're just kind of like, whatever. And so Jesus decides to go to the house of a man named Simon who had previously had leprosy. A dinner was prepared in Jesus' honor, and Martha served, and Lazarus was among those who ate with him. So there's this party going on. Jesus is about to be crucified. He's like, whatever, guys, let's party. Right? It's the last week of life. You got to party. And so there's this party, and this party is the place to be. So the Bible tells us, number one, that Lazarus was there. I told you guys about Lazarus. Lazarus was raised from the dead. Just been raised from the dead. And so what has happened is Simon, the Pharisee, the leper, we read here, a man who previously had leprosy, he throws this party in Jesus' honor. And so at the party, Simon the Pharisee is there, and Lazarus, the man who has been raised from the dead, is there. And if you guys can imagine the scene that you have just heard that someone has been raised from the dead. Hey man, remember Lazarus, the guy that died? Yeah, he's back. He's at a party tonight, right? So Lazarus is there, and no doubt there was hype. The Bible tells us the people had flocked to Bethany. They wanted to see what was going on. They wanted to catch a glimpse of Lazarus, a glimpse of someone that Jesus has raised from the dead. And more so than seeing this dead guy, people wanted to see Jesus. They're like, man, there's this guy Jesus there. He's doing crazy things. And so Lazarus is there. On the other side of Lazarus, sitting beside Jesus, we have this man named Simon. And now Simon had previously had leprosy. And so for those of you guys who do not know, leprosy in the times of the Bible was pretty well a fate worse than death. And so when the Bible says that Simon was a man who had previously had leprosy, that does not mean that Simon got the best medical treatment, took some antibiotics, and was healed. When it said Simon had previously had leprosy, what it's saying is that Jesus had healed him of leprosy. So we have this picture in this house, someone who was figuratively given new life. This leper, they would see him, they say, unclean, unclean. Simon couldn't even live his life. Jesus had given this guy a figurative new life, and we have Lazarus, who has a literal new life at this party. This was the place you had to be. And the Bible says people were flocking. I can only imagine they're trying to get in. I'm sure there's people sneaking under the fence, much like we were at that party, just to get a glimpse of Jesus. And so there's so many people there. The 12 are there. The disciples are there. Everyone is there. And during this dinner, Jesus gives 3 messages, 3 distinct messages to the people who are there. And so what I wanted to do tonight is I want to look at the 3 messages that Jesus has for these people at this dinner. And so what happens at this dinner, the 12 are there, the disciples, Lazarus, Simon, you guys get the picture. And the Bible tells us that a woman comes in. The account in Luke says an immoral woman. The account in John tells us her name is Mary. And so Mary comes in, immoral woman, and what she does is this. Mark chapter 14. It says, when he was eating, speaking about Jesus, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume made from the essence of nard. She broke open the jar and poured the perfume over his head. Some of those at the table were indignant. Why waste such expensive perfume, they asked. It could have been sold for a year's wages and the money given to the poor. So they scolded her harshly. So Mary comes in. She comes in and she pours this expensive perfume on Jesus. The Bible tells us it was worth almost a year's wage. That's a lot of money. I don't know how much you guys make in a year, but can you guys imagine spending that on perfume? That's a lot. That's Dolce & Gabbana. That's Justin Bieber. That's all the good stuff. A year's wages on the, I don't know if Justin Bieber is a good perfume or cologne. I guess it depends on your style, your taste. Nevertheless, it's expensive perfume, and the Bible says that she begins to pour this perfume all over Jesus. And so as you can imagine, the people are kind of cheesed. They're like, hey man, that's worth a year's wages. What is this woman doing? And no doubt, she's kind of an immoral woman, so why is this woman even there to begin with? Who is this lady? And so they sort of just scold her. They scold her. And Jesus replies and he says this. He says, leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, and you can help them whenever you want, but you will not always have me. And so in essence, Jesus basically says, leave her alone. That's why he says, leave her alone. Why are you criticizing her? Why are you criticizing her for doing a good thing? And it is in this sentence we get the first message that Jesus gives. And every single message we're going to look at tonight is a foreshadow to what Jesus is about to do on the cross. It's his last week. And so the first message we get right here is a message of compassion. He has compassion on Mary. He's saying, what are you guys doing? Leave her alone. She's doing a good thing. And Jesus, if anyone, he knew what it was like to do a good thing and have people misunderstand him. Whenever Jesus did something, people were always questioning him. Who is this man that he can forgive sins? Who is this man? And so Jesus knows what it's like when people are criticizing you for doing a good thing. And so he has compassion on Mary. He says, leave her alone. For those of you guys who don't know what compassion means to feel what someone else feels. So what Jesus is saying is not just goodwill towards Mary. He's not just saying, I understand. He feels it. He's been there. He's been in that situation. He has compassion. And Jesus has compassion on Mary, and he has compassion on us. And compassion, what that means is just to feel what someone else is feeling. For myself, sometimes I feel a little bit too much. I don't know how many of you guys know this about me, but I'm not very good with blood and gore and things of that nature. I literally feel when there's blood. I feel it. I can't watch gory things. And so this movie came out a few years ago, 127 hours. Has anyone seen that here? All right, for those of you guys who have not seen it, spoilers ahead. The movie's been out for a long time. It's a true story, so get over it. Essentially what this movie is about, there's this guy, Aaron Ralston, and what happens is he's biking, he's hiking, and he falls into a valley, and a rock gets lodged on his arm. And he's trapped in a cave, and this arm is completely stuck with this rock on it. And so, long story short, what happens, he has to cut his arm off in order to escape. I'm sorry, the movie's ruined. And so I knew the movie, it's a true story, and so everyone was saying when it came out, like, oh, you got to see it, there's Oscar buzz, it's so good. And I was like, no, I can't see it. Like, I can't. And so, long story short, the peer pressure kept coming, so eventually I was like, okay, I'll see it. Whatever, I'll bear through it. As soon as the movie started, I kind of went into a cold sweat, because I knew what was going to happen. And as soon as he falls into the cave, like, I'm tripping out. And the movie goes on, and his arm is getting, like, whiter as the movie goes on, the more days he's trapped under there. The whiter he gets, the whiter my face gets. I'm legitimately feeling every aspect of what he's feeling. And so what happens is getting to the climax of the movie, and he pulls out the knife, and, like, he stabs himself once. And at this point, I'm, like, fading in and out of consciousness. I'm in that cave. I'm Aaron Ralston in that moment. And I was like, I'm not going to make it. And so what happened was I had to run upstairs, and my mom, she's very similar to me. She had compassion. She's not good with blood either. And so as soon as she sees me, she, like, practically starts passing out. She's like, what's wrong with you? Like, you don't look good. She's getting pale. But she calmed down, started to fan me down, and gave me some water, and the color in my face kind of eventually came back. But the reason I'm kind of telling you guys this story is it's not the best example of compassion, but compassion literally means to feel what someone else feels. And so Jesus, in this moment, he felt, just like I felt that guy's pain in that cave. It's not true compassion, because I never actually experienced that. But Jesus was able to sympathize with Mary. He was able to sympathize with her because he had been through what she had been through. And so, friends, what that means for us is that when we are going through hard times, when we experience rejection, when we experience isolation, there is a God who has felt what we felt. And therefore, he can sympathize with us. And so the first message that Jesus has is a message of compassion. That Jesus feels what we feel. When we go through hard times, when we go through bad times, Jesus feels what we feel. Hebrews chapter 4 puts it like this. It says, for we do not have a high priest, speaking about Jesus, who is unable to empathize with our weakness. But we have one who was tempted in every way, just as we are, and yet he did not sin. Almost died there. Choked on myself. Friends, there is no other thought, there's no other religion, there's no other God who claims to have experienced what it means to be human. God, our God, Jesus, is the only God who knows what it's like to be human. It says we do not serve a priest. We don't have a God. There's not a God up there who is looking down on you in judgment, saying, look at this person. Look at how they're failing. Look at all of their shortcomings. That's not the God we serve. The Bible says we serve a God who has compassion on us because he knows what it is like to be human. And so you may be saying to yourself, well, that's fine. Jesus experienced a little bit of rejection. But Jesus did not experience what it's like to be fully human. Jesus was never heartbroken. He was never dumped. Jesus never experienced pornography. He doesn't know what it's like to be addicted. He doesn't know. Yeah, he experienced a little rejection, but he doesn't know the full grasp of what being human is all about. But I want to read you a verse, Isaiah 53. It's a prophecy about Jesus. It says this. It said, because he poured out his soul unto death, he was numbered with the transgressions, and he bore the sins of many. And he made intercession for the transgressors. What this verse is saying is Jesus literally felt the full weight of sin. On the cross, this is a foreshadow to the cross. On the cross, Jesus experienced every type of pain, every type of heartbreak. What killed Jesus was not the cross. It was not the crucifixion. It was the weight of sin. And so in that moment, he experienced rape. He experienced rejection. He experienced the harshest of harsh. And what that means, because he experienced those things, God knows exactly what it feels like to be human. In our lowest times, in our hardest times, when we are heartbroken, when we are sad, when we feel empty, God has experienced that. And therefore, he has compassion on us. He says, I know exactly what you're going through. And there's no other God that can say that. I know what it's like to be human. On the cross, he experienced everything. And so, friends, the first message is a message of compassion. And that's why he scolds the people at the table, the disciples. He scolds them because Jesus has been through what she's been through. And any time in life, you will always see that Jesus has a heart for the marginalized. He has a heart for those who do not feel like they are enough. And so he says this. Jesus says, she was doing what she could and has anointed my body for burial ahead of time. I tell you the truth, wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deed will be remembered and discussed. We good? Okay. He looks at me weird. I'm like, what's going on? Am I giving him weird looks? We good. Anyways, back to the word here. Jesus says, wherever the good news is preached, this woman's story will be told. Wherever the gospel is preached, you'll hear this woman's story. Because what Mary was doing when pouring out this expensive bottle of perfume, she was understanding and realizing what no one else had realized, that Jesus was about to die. At the beginning, he said, guys, I'm about to die. And the disciples were like, whatever, bro. You're the Son of Man. You're not going anywhere. But Mary understood that he was about to die. And in these times, whenever someone died, they would anoint the body with spices. And so what Mary was doing was she was anointing the body ahead of time, ahead of the burial. And so what she was doing, other people were not understanding. And Jesus has sympathized with that. He's like, I know what it's like to do something and people don't understand. And a side note for us, friends, in life, never be afraid or scared to do something because of what other people may think of you. Because Jesus always stood out from other people. He always went against the norm. And so that should never hold us back. What will people think of me? I don't want to be different. And so Jesus has compassion and he has sympathy on these people, on Mary. And he says, wherever the good news is preached, her story will be told. And so the first message is a message of compassion. And so at the table, the disciples, some of the people are like, Mary, why are you wasting the perfume? Then there's this other guy at the table, Simon, the one who was healed of leprosy, the Pharisee. And Simon, he says this. And Simon at the table says this, Luke 7, I'll get to it. It says, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, so he saw her pouring the perfume, he said to himself, if this were a prophet, he would know what kind of a woman is touching him. She's a sinner. And so this is a different objection from the first one. The first objection was a verbal objection. The second one, Simon's just thinking about it. Those are the worst type, right? When you know people are thinking about you, but they're not saying anything. They're just kind of silently judging you. That's what Simon is doing to this girl. He's saying, who is this man? If you're a prophet, he would know who's touching him. And it's interesting that Simon is saying this. Because what he is saying is that if Jesus were someone out of the ordinary, he would know who this woman was. He would know what other people don't know about her, that she's a prostitute, that she's immoral, that she's promiscuous. And so as I was musing through this story this week, I was asking myself, if Jesus doesn't know, it's not common knowledge. I was like, how does Simon know that she's a prostitute? And I'm just extrapolating here, so don't take what I'm saying as fact, but what I was thinking today, perhaps the only reason Simon knew he was immoral, because Simon had paid a trip to her one day on the side of the street somewhere in Bethany. Are you guys listening? But I'm not going to go any further on that because I'm just extrapolating. I don't want you guys to take it as fact and say I'm a heretic. But long story short, Simon is judging her silently. So there's silence at this moment. He's judging her, and it's funny. It says this. Then Jesus answered his thoughts. It's silent, and Jesus just answers him. He's like, Simon. Simon must be like, yes. I have something to say to you. Go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. Then Jesus told him a story. It's funny, if you ever see Jesus, he won't kind of call you out, or a lot of times he's like, I'm going to tell you a story real quick. Let me tell you a parable. And he tells a story, and it says this. It says, a man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces of silver to the other. And neither of them could repay him. So he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debt. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, I suppose for the one for whom he canceled the larger debt. And so on the same page here, we're moving forward. The first message is a message of compassion. Jesus has compassion on Mary. And so the next thing, he addresses Simon, and he addresses him in a parable about two men. And the message we get from this parable is the second message of Jesus. It is a message of hope. Jesus has compassion, and now he gives a message of hope. And he does it through a parable. He says one man owed 500 pieces of silver and another owed 50 pieces of silver. In essence, two people owed someone something. And the person to whom they owed, he paid off the whole debt. He cleared the tab. And this, my friends, is a direct foreshadow to the cross. This is what was going to happen on the cross. Jesus was about to pay the debt. And so he does it in a parable, and he says, Simon, two people owe. In other words, there are two people who cannot pay back. One owes a lot, one owes a little. But the gist is, neither of them can pay back, and the man pays back the debt in full. Jesus pays the debt. When I was in college, I had a friend. His name is Jorge. If you guys are here Easter weekend, Jorge is speaking Saturday morning. You don't want to miss it. He's a small Spanish guy. Who wants to miss that? Another plug for Easter, be there. But he's speaking this weekend. And one thing that we would do, we play badminton versus each other. And we played badminton and we would bet each other. So what would happen is we would bet junior chickens or double cheeseburgers from McDonald's. Have you guys had a value pick before? No one's had a value pick? All right, so you guys got to live a little bit. No one, who has had a value pick before? There we go, Tash. That's honest. Honest people. Everyone's had a value pick? That's true. That's all right. At least, does anyone not know what a value pick is? It's not in the sermon, I got to tell you real quick. At McDonald's, there's a value menu. And you can get burgers for like $1.39. It's a fantastic deal. Anyways, what me and my friend Jorge would do is we would play badminton versus each other, and we would bet. And the loser of the match would owe someone a cheeseburger or McChicken, junior chicken. And we would play. And so one day we were playing, and we always play double or nothing. So if someone wins, we go double or nothing. Then it's cleared or it builds up. And so one day I had a tough day at the badminton court, and I lost double or nothing. I lost double or nothing. I lost. And it just kept going on. And so long story short, I was like 15, 20 cheeseburgers in the hole. And so Jorge says, like, and I'm like 20 deep. I'm like, double or nothing. Like, I got to get out of this. And he's like, well, there's no way I'll ever eat 20 cheeseburgers, 20 junior chickens. He's like, we're going straight to cash now. He's like, he adds it up. He's like, you owe me about $40. And I was like, okay, double or nothing. And so I lose again. Because here's the thing. If you're playing for money, there's a lot of pressure on you. When that birdie's coming to you, you see those cheeseburgers in your eyes, and you can't play straight. And so we kept playing double or nothing. Long story short, I was down like $200 or something crazy. And so I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And so we finished. I'm in the hole. I'm in a big hole. And I was like, whatever. I was like, we're good friends. He's not going to make me pay this tab. If you know Jorge, you know that's not true. You'll meet him Easter weekend if you guys be here. If you owe him money, he's not going to make your life very fun. And so every single day, like, he's like, I'm not endorsing Family Guy, but if you guys have seen Stewie and Family Guy, he's like, where's my money? Where's my money? A few of you guys have seen that. That's what he was like every single day. He's like, where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money? I don't know if you guys have ever been in debt or owed someone before, but no matter what, there's no peace in your life. There's no peace. When you go to sleep, he's ringing in your ears because you owed him something, right? And so I'm in school. I wasn't working. I didn't have the money to pay him back. But every single day I had this debt weighing over me, and it weighed down because I owed him something. I paid him eventually. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I think all of us have experienced a moment where we feel like we owe someone something. All of us have, and in that moment I felt like I was not good enough. I felt like I was inadequate. And so Mary, in this story, she would have felt like she was not good enough. She would have felt like she had a debt she could not pay. And what Jesus had done previously, not in this story, is he had forgiven her debt fully. He said, you are forgiven for all that you have done. And so Jesus is trying to explain this to Simon. He's saying, Simon, don't you see why she's so grateful? Don't you see why? It's because she has hope. Because she knows that I've cleared the debt. I've cleared it. And Simon at this point, he was holier than thou. He thought he was so much better than this woman. But he seemed to have forgot that he had leprosy at one point, and Jesus had healed him too. And that's what happens in life. We want to judge people and think we're so much better than someone else. But friends, the Bible tells us that all have sinned, all fall short of the glory of God. And so what that means is all of us were walking around with a debt that we could not pay. And it was our life. All of us are not good enough. All of us are inadequate. But this message of hope that Jesus gives through this parable, he's saying whether a little is owed or a lot is owed, I will pay the debt. And this is a direct foreshadow to the cross. He's saying, I will pay the debt. On the cross, Jesus pays the debt. The book of Isaiah says, come, let's take care of this once and for all. The debt is paid in Jesus. In Jesus. And so this parable is saying, whether a little is owed, whether you think you've done a whole bunch of bad stuff or a little bit of bad stuff, either way, you are in debt. Either way, we could not pay it, and Jesus pays it in full. And that is a message of hope, friends. Because there's someone in this room who's been walking around feeling inadequate, feeling like there's something over them, like I can never escape my past. I'm not good enough. What I've done will always be there. But Jesus is saying in this message of hope, if you just understand it, if you understand what I'm doing for you, it will change your life. That thing, that cloud, that dark cloud that is always over you is gone. And this is what Jesus says in Luke chapter 7. He says, so Jesus says, who do you think loves her most? Jesus says, I suppose the one, Simon says, I suppose the one for whom he canceled the larger debt. That's right, Jesus said. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the common courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfumes. He's saying, Simon, don't you see? Simon, you are so dense. He's saying, Simon, when you understand what grace is like, you understand what I've done for her, you'll see why she's acting like this. Because, friends, when we understand the magnitude of what God has done for us, our lives should be changed. Because what that means is every single one of us in this room has hope. And as we move towards Easter weekend, that is the message of Easter. It's hope. It's hope. And so, friends, as we move towards Easter, I pray and I hope if you know someone who hasn't heard about this hope, hasn't experienced this hope, that they be there next week, April 1st, in 2 weeks, because there's still altitude in between. Because every single day, every single week, we're going to continue this message of hope. Of hope. And that is what God, he says, he gives her hope. And here's the thing, friends, because no matter what we have done, the things we've done in our past, the heinous things, the Bible tells us in the book of Romans chapter 5, verse 20, it says, where sin abounds, grace abounds even more so. Where all that stuff that you have done, all of those sins that you feel like are there forever, where sin abounds, God's grace is there even more so. It's covered. It's covered. That's the message of hope. And he says, Simon, this woman understands that her sins are covered. She's not who she used to be. She's not who you say she is. And this is the message of hope for every single one of us in this room. And Jesus says this. He turns to Mary. He says, I tell you, her sins, and they are many, have been forgiven. So she has shown me much love, but a person who is forgiven little shows only a little love. Then Jesus said to the woman, your sins are forgiven. And so the last message, friends, we have a message of compassion, a message of hope, and the last message is a message of forgiveness. No other God, nothing in this world can offer you forgiveness. What forgiveness means is that what happened in the past is not there anymore. Who you were before is gone. It's gone. Mary, you're not that immoral woman. You are a new creation. Only God can answer in that way. Only God can give us forgiveness. And it's funny, he doesn't sugarcoat it. Jesus never sugarcoats anything. He says her sins, they're many. There's a lot. Write it down. He says, but she has shown me much love, so they are forgiven. And for us in this room, he's like, I know what you did last week. I know what you did last month. I know what you did last night. The sins are many. They're a lot. But when you accept the message of hope, what awaits you is a message of forgiveness. It says, you are forgiven. You are enough. And so, friends, we're just getting started on the journey to the cross. Everything tonight was a direct foreshadow of what Jesus did on the cross. So I hope and I pray that you will join us for these next few weeks as we move towards Easter weekend. Because God is going to change people's lives. And if you have people that you want to hear about the cross, I encourage you to bring them Easter weekend, because God's going to change lives. Because there's someone out there, if not in this room, out there who needs that hope, who needs that forgiveness, who needs to understand God's grace, a grace that is so wide, a grace that is so deep, a grace that is incomprehensible, that is too good to be true. Someone needs to hear about it. And it's for someone. in this room, someone in this room is forgiven. Where much love is shown, there will be forgiveness. So I invite you guys to stand with us now as we just continue to sing to the God that offers us forgiveness and new life.